Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're diving into another James Patterson novel. It's another co-authored novel with an author called Howard Roughan. I didn't realise it when I first picked this book up to read that I had read it before. When I looked on Goodreads, on the Goodreads app in the library, it wasn't coming up as read, so I don't know what was going on with that, but I have read it, and it's on Goodreads as read, so now it's there twice. I did pick up the other two books in the series as well, and I've read all three since, and I've found all three good reads, and I will do a video on each one. The first is called Murder Games, and I think in some countries the book may be titled differently. I'm not sure which regions have which title, but in my country it's Murder Games, and this is the cover. The cover's not really exciting, but the playing cards do have a part in the story, an important part. So this is a book about the hunt for a serial killer, and his calling card is leaving playing cards when someone's murdered, and they're clues to who's going to be murdered next. And we find that out in the plot, and it's also on the back of the book in the blurb. So let's dive right in and talk about the plot for Murder Games. This book starts out with a definite hook and a really interesting twist. It starts out from the POV of the killer, the serial killer in this novel, and that had me hooked so early on, and it just grabbed my attention so much and made me so eager to read this book really quickly, and I did. Unfortunately, I was reading it on the weekend, I think it was, so I think it was about a 2-3 hour read. That first part of the book from the serial killer's POV was just amazing, and from then on it's just really fast paced. The action's really good. It doesn't slow down at all, and you find that with a lot of James Patterson novels that they are quite fast. He's good at those short chapters where there's not much filler. Every chapter seems to have a purpose. Even if you don't like the overall book, you can't say that the pace is slow in a James Patterson novel and the chapters are designed well. I do like this novel, the way it flows, the whole thing. I do like the pace, I do like the action, I like the characters, the plot. There's a few twists in there as well that are really good. Everything about this novel is just so well done. After we have the serial killer's introduction, we're introduced to our two main protagonists. One is Dylan, and he is a college professor of psychology. He's a great character, and the way he's introduced to Elizabeth, who is a detective, is just, it's a great way of introducing these two characters to us and to each other. They don't know who each other is. She kind of barges in to his lecture out of the blue, disturbs the whole thing. But they start throwing barbs at each other, a few digs at each other. And as she's leaving, she has the last word, which she seems to sometimes do in this book. And just that sentence to Dylan, the other character, is so great. It just makes you think that these characters are going to work well in the novel. And they do. They really bounce off each other really well in this novel. And they're so well balanced with each other. I think they're a perfect match, to be honest. You have Elizabeth, who is the detective, and she's a bit more action oriented. And then you have Dylan, who's more of a thinker. And they just complement each other really well throughout the whole novel. The great thing about this book is there's a few red herrings, there's a few twists, and there's just things that happen that really keep you guessing. So the reason Dylan, the professor, is brought into the case in the first place is because the serial killer sends the professor's book to a crime reporter, and this crime reporter is called Grimes, and he's a well-known reporter in the city. But we've always got that thing in the back of our minds when we're reading this, that did the killer really send that book to Grimes? How did Grimes get it? Is Grimes actually the killer? There's all these things going on in this book. We don't know if we can trust every character, and that's really well done. The characters are presented in such a way, and the whole novel is written in such a way that we don't know who to trust. We don't know if every character is trustworthy. And even for a moment, I found myself wondering if Dylan, the professor, was the killer. I even thought that Dylan's husband, Tracy, might be the killer as well for a while. There's so many characters in here that just keep you guessing. It's really well written. I don't know if I've read many James Patterson books that have this much complexity of character that you don't know who to trust. Dylan is our main character, and he's a professor of psychology, as I mentioned earlier on in this video. He's a really good character, and I did like the fact that the authors made this character gay and that he's got a husband and he's in a stable relationship. I thought that was a really good thing to do, really positive. This character is very witty, very clever, very intuitive as well. He also has a bit of a history, and we do find that about him as we go on in the novel. And I won't give it away because I want to make it a surprise for you. It's not a bad thing. In his history, it's a good thing, but he has a history, and that leads us to some more interesting characters in this novel from his past life, his past career. Elizabeth is our police detective. She's a good character, not as well-rounded as Dylan, in my opinion, but she's written in the same way that Patterson writes a lot of his female detective characters, or characters that are in some sort of law enforcement. He seems to always write them as very active, very stubborn, very courageous as well, very driven, and not taking any cheek from anybody. They seem to be components in all his female characters that are in law enforcement, which is a bit of a shame. You want some differences in there. So I'm not sure why James Patterson writes so many characters like that. Maybe as readers we expect that, or they're the characters we enjoy the most. There has to be a reason for it. But Elizabeth is a good character, just not as well-rounded and as well-developed as Dylan. The last character I'll mention from this book is Grimes. Now, he's our crime reporter. He's a good character. He's quite fun. He's this alcoholic journalist that doesn't really care what he says and what he does. And he thinks he's got so much pull in his industry and so many resources out there, so many people he can lean on for information, that what he does doesn't matter. And I quite like this character. He's just very fun, very engaging, and you know you're going to have a good time when he's in the scene. Murder Games is a really good book. When I read this the first time, I don't think I rated it as high as I do now, and now I rate it a 4 out of 5. I'm not sure why the difference is. I'm not sure if I just thought about it differently when I read it. Maybe I was in a different headspace, I don't know. But I really enjoyed it this time, and it made me hungry to read books 2 and 3 in the series. And there's only 3 at the moment, and the 3rd book was published this year, in 2022. I really encourage people to read this series, and I know a lot of people just shy away from James Patterson novels because they think they're not going to be always great, but this series is really good. I'm not sure exactly what genre this should be, whether it's crime or thriller. I think of it as a thriller, even though the main character is a serial killer, or the main crimes are from a serial killer. I think this more is a thriller novel. I do review other James Patterson books on my channel. If you don't want to miss out on those reviews, check out my channel and subscribe. Also, check out the thriller playlist that's on my channel. You should see it on your screen now.